Welcome back to the Angler Journey podcast for another episode of celebrating success, embracing failure, and inspiring the entrepreneur inside of you. I'm your host, Emily Frenzen, and this morning I am thrilled to welcome Kelly Ross into the studio. Kelly's story is a beautiful story of sparking others to start through her nonprofit, Echo Collective. Echo Collective was started in the midst of the pandemic, which is so fitting for this season in which we are interviewing entrepreneurs who proved to be resilient in the midst of COVID-19. So Kelly, welcome to the studio. Go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background.
Well, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. My name is Kelly Ross. I'm the executive director of Echo Collective, and I graduated from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I grew up south of Lincoln in a small town called Hickman, which is basically a suburb of Lincoln these days.
Yeah.
And so I went to UNL. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I was at the end of that generation that was told, you know, college is accessible for everyone. Just study what you want to learn. Mm-hmm. So I studied Spanish because I'd always loved languages and getting to know people from other places, anyone who was different from me. I was really intrigued and I wanted to know everything about them. And so I studied Spanish and I was about to graduate. I was not fluent in Spanish. Fortunately, I had a minor in business administration, but I was very unmoored. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I volunteered for the family literacy program through Southeast Community College, which is an English as a second language program for adults. But the great thing is they go into elementary schools and they teach the parents of the children at that elementary school. So it creates a bond between the parent and the child, the parent and the school, and of course the parents learning English the whole time. Mm-hmm. And so I volunteered for that. And the minute I walked in and started interacting with the amazing, typically women in that program, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with folks who were new to the United States, who were born in another country, and also who were facing various barriers to success, especially language acquisition.
Right.
And so fortunately, in order to teach adult ed at SCC, you just need a bachelor's degree and it doesn't have to be specific. Thank goodness. So I started teaching English as a second language through Southeast Community College. And then I was doing a bunch of other things in the meantime because that was a part-time job. So I was cobbling together all of these different jobs in order to make full-time employment, which typically was more like full-time plus.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But that's where I really got my start in working with people who were born outside the U.S. Prior to that, I honestly had no experience really at all.
Yeah.
And so it was from 0 to 100. And so my learning curve for the last decade has been severe and awesome and enlightening, and I recommend it for everyone.
So good. That's awesome. So how many jobs at once did you have?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever had over 4 at a time.
Okay.
But I had usually averaged about 3.
Yeah.
So after college, I averaged about 3. And then in college, I only had 1.
Yeah. The word I'm thinking of when you're talking about that is hustling, but it's like hustling with purpose because I see so much purpose behind what you're doing. Yeah. And I'm just really wowed at your heart for this for so many years. Do you know where that comes from?
I'm asked that a lot.
Really?
And it's a hard question because first of all, it's about my subconscious and no one really knows your subconscious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really sure. I think a lot of us try to fix things that we've experienced ourselves. And although I have never moved to a new country to start a new life, I have obviously struggled in a language that's not my primary. Mm-hmm. But I think working with the women that I do, it helps right some wrongs that occurred. Not only in my personal past, but things that really stick out to me personally in the world, like things that really bother me about what's going on with society. And so I think it's more of a strange justice crusade.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah, but it's very under the surface. It's something that I will untangle my whole life because I'm not really sure where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's burning.
If you find out, let me know. Yeah. That's awesome. So let's get into what Echo Collective is, and then I want to hear the story of how you started.
Sure. So Echo Collective is a nonprofit. and we serve refugee and immigrant women. And all of our programs focus on empowerment. And we do the empowerment through different programs and always providing them in a very safe and nurturing environment with a focus on creating intercultural connections. And that can be between someone born in the United States and someone born in Mexico, someone born in Mexico, someone born in Sudan. It doesn't matter. It's just cross-cultural either way.
Okay.
Because, society can be very fractured and can be very cliquey. And so we're really trying to heal those fractions, because we know that once you get to know someone different than you, it just makes you a better global citizen all around. And so we are most well known for our flagship program, which is called The Refinery. And it's an entrepreneurship program that helps refugee and immigrant women start businesses or improve existing businesses. And so we do that through mentorship and community-driven curriculum, and obviously, everything we do is at a lower English level, more intermediate.
Okay.
So it's very accessible and palatable to the women we serve. We're not expecting full fluency, because honestly, that's not realistic and that's not fair.
Yeah, totally. So where did you get the idea to start this?
It's a long journey. So at the time, I was working for a woman named Katie Patrick. And she has a nonprofit called Tatonga Bamoy, which is located in Congo, which it's, I think, a decade old, and it provides entrepreneurship training for women in Congo. And it's structured a little differently than here, just because of societal differences. But I was interning with her after sitting down with her and saying, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And she said, well, just come intern with me. So I started interning with her, and she taught me so much about running a nonprofit, because it was just her. It was her and her board of directors. And she'd been doing it, as I said, for a decade. She said, come on board, help me with some of these things. And so I learned everything I needed to know about running a nonprofit and the challenges there. And then I wanted to address some of the things that I saw in Lincoln specifically, because it's hard to work and serve people who are half a world away.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to take some of the things that I had learned and apply it locally with women that I was teaching, I was friends with, and fix some of those obstacles that they were constantly coming to me with. And so I approached Katie and I said, this is my idea. And of course she said, love it, let's do it. So we started developing the Refinery program, and we realized that it was not a good fit under her nonprofit, because it is located in Congo.
Yeah.
And so she just casually told me one day, I've been thinking about it, and I think you just need to start your own nonprofit. And that's extremely overwhelming, because any entrepreneur can tell you, it doesn't matter if it's a social enterprise nonprofit, that when you start something, it's your reputation that people are believing in. It's your capability that people are investing in. So other nonprofits in town are old enough where, if I would say, the Asian Community and Cultural Center, of course you might know the executive director, Sheila Dorsey Vinton, but it's not her reputation that's necessarily driving the success of the center, because they have decades of success to back up their reputation. But when you start something new, it's not about, Echo Collective, what do they do? It's about Kelly. Who is Kelly?
Right.
What does she do? How does she do it? Does she have integrity? And so I think that was really overwhelming for me, to start something new where its success was based upon who I am as a person. It was a huge self-esteem test. Like, do you believe in yourself enough where others will also believe in you?
Yeah.
And so fortunately, I have a very supportive husband. I should always shout him out, because obviously he's the one that's, with me really late at night, mopping the floors. Like, he's my partner through everything. So I have a lot of support around me. And so I was able to start Echo. And then parallel to that, to this whole thing of me learning the ins and outs of a nonprofit, I was teaching English as a second language. And one of my students came to me, and I'd been teaching her for 5 years. Her name's Cecilia, and she is very good at creating things with her hands. So she knits, she crochets, she can do macrame, really anything woven. She's extremely good at. And she would bring things to class. She would gift things to me. And I would tell her over and over, you need to sell this.
Yeah.
Do you want to sell this? And she said, yes, I would love to sell this. I would love to make more money for my family, but I don't know the laws. I don't really know any Americans here besides, my kids' teachers and of course me. And the capstone, I don't speak English, which she does. She definitely does. And I think she's proven herself that she definitely speaks enough English.
Yeah.
But, and that gave me the idea, okay, I can walk alongside Cecilia and do this. And then that combined with the idea from Katie, it really developed this program from women asking me for help with the specific problem and me having the capability to create a nonprofit out of it. So those two things merged simultaneously. And that's where the refinery program kind of got its start. And then after the fact, I added a nonprofit umbrella on top of it, which our other programs will fall under.
Okay.
So it was a little cart before the horse, but...
It sounds like the timing is incredible.
Right. Yes. Everything came together just at the right time.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. So what was it like starting during COVID? Because this launched in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. How was that a prime time to start? And how was that really, really hard for you?
So it was a prime time to start because the expectations were so low, so people were not expecting much. And running running a program that was fully operating wasn't possible. And so you really had to focus on the most important things about your program and then pivot and make those things fit the pandemic. And so that was a gift because it helps me with my own expectations. Like you can't snap your fingers and overnight have a nonprofit with staff.
Right.
And so it slowed me down in my steps, which helped me make really solid steps. And we have a really great foundation for our nonprofit. And then conversely, obviously at Echo, we're all about making connection. And during a pandemic, you're limiting connection or bringing it online. And I'm very focused on not having much connection online because I really don't think that you can form great relationships that way. I think you need to be in person. And so we just really had to be specific about who we were connecting with in person. And we had to say no to a couple things. But as we've gotten to know what is the coronavirus, what is this pandemic, how do we move through it, we've been able to open up our program and invite more people in. And especially with vaccinations, we are able to do so in a safe way. So it was the right time for us to start.
Yeah, that is incredible. Such a cool perspective. So how do women find you, or how did you find them? What is that like for getting women into the programming?
So I already had like a short list of women I knew who probably would want to take the program. Yeah. And when I say short list, I mean like maybe 5 or 6. And then in terms of women finding me, it's just me creating connections with other nonprofits. And fortunately, I've worked at a lot of them. And so they already know me and know what I stand for. Yeah. And so referral, we're very much referral based because we're looking for that specific woman who is an entrepreneur. And we know that an entrepreneur is a specific type of person. It's not anyone can be an entrepreneur.
Right.
So, referrals, and then just women that I know, that I've known over the past 10 years. For example, I have 2 interviews set up in the next couple of weeks with women from Mexico. And as we were texting back and forth, it pulls up your text history when you do that. And I looked through, and I have helped both of them get their citizenship 3 years ago when I was working at the Hispanic Center, El Centro.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's just funny where they kind of keep track of me. I have old students message me and say, hey, teacher, what are you up to now? Because I know you're not teaching English anymore. Yeah. And so it just gets out in the community that way as well.
Yeah. That's incredible. So cool. Why would you say this work matters in Nebraska?
Because we have so much untapped talent. And one thing that I have seen with more traditional accelerators that you would find, a lot more focus on like technology and sometimes they don't stay in Lincoln. They don't stay in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so these women are so invested in Lincoln, Nebraska. They love Lincoln. They love the schools that their children go to, and they are invested in having a business here. And so their talent combined with their commitment to Lincoln makes them the perfect entrepreneur, the perfect person to help Lincoln grow and help us all grow as a community. And so, I can speak specifically to Lincoln. I would love to grow this program outside of Lincoln. That's one of our long-term goals is licensing this, starting close like Cree and Seward, and then moving out, talking to Omaha, talking to Western Nebraska to see what that would look like. So Nebraska definitely needs this program. There's no other program like this in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I can see how Lincoln has benefited greatly by having local talent, local diverse talent come out of the woodwork and have the support to sell what they make and to invest in the local economy that way.
Yeah. Let's hear some of those success stories. How have you seen that be fruitful?
So I mentioned Cecilia earlier, the woman who really inspired it all. I tell everyone that. And so, of course, she was in my first cohort of women.
Okay.
And so when she started, she was living in a mobile home. She has 3 very rambunctious, adorable little boys.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was the type of mobile home park where they really could not play outside. It was not safe. There wasn't a playground. So they either had to walk to the playground, which was not quite close, or they had to drive in order for the boys to play outside, which is ridiculous, completely ridiculous, especially in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so after she started the program and she started making money, she and her husband felt stable enough to buy a house. So now they have a house with a huge backyard and a sandbox, and next door the kids also speak Spanish and English, so the kids just run around yelling a mix of Spanish, English, and Spanglish. Just have a great time. And so it has really improved her life. But the amazing thing about when you invest in a woman, she takes that investment and she multiplies it. She just infuses it out in the community. And you see that with every single success story we have. So of course, Cecilia, her boys' lives are so much better now. Her husband's life is better. She's investing in her community with her neighbors. She's talking to her family about what's going on and helping her family more. Yeah. And so it's really amazing to see what an investment does in a woman, especially women from another country. It's just like next level.
That is incredible. So cool. I'm curious about how you specifically help these women overcome barriers and give them the tools to take their business and either grow it or start it. How do you do that specifically? What is your team like, and what are the foundations of the business model?
Sure. So I recognize that I don't know everything. Don't tell my husband that. And so when I started this, I very much wanted to bring the community in. So I'm not teaching every lesson. I'm facilitating every lesson. Okay. I do teach some lessons. I do a lot of preparatory work. So we do vocabulary. We kind of warm up their brains to get ready for the ideas and the concepts before the speaker comes in. But I'm not teaching the majority of the lessons. So for example, this specific cohort, which is from September to December 2021, I have 30 different women who are coming in and speaking to specific topics, ranging from believing in yourself in our personal development module to Canva in our marketing module to reading financial statements in our accounting module. So it runs all over the board, but I'm bringing in people to speak to these women. So they are creating that connection, and they are recognizing that the community supports them. And there are women in the community who are experts at this that they can turn to when they have questions about that. And so through that, these women are building social capital at a sprint. Really. Yeah. And that's one thing that I found in working with people who were born outside the United States is the biggest thing they need, besides access to resources, is for people just to open the door. Genuinely, that's all they need. And it's so simple. And that's why I am so passionate about what I'm doing, is because the barriers to these women's success boils down to me opening a door that I've always had in my life. And that's it.
Wow.
And watching them walk through and just take over the world.
Yeah.
And so all of these women that I bring in, these speakers, they are opening doors. And so if a woman comes in and says, I'm really interested in retail placement, this is what I have, this is who I'm interested in working with, it's very normal for the speaker to say, oh yeah, she's my neighbor, I'll just reach out to her.
Oh my
and that
goodness.
happens all the time. And so we're creating this network for the women that helps them build out their businesses. And so in our mission statement, that's why we talk about building those intercultural relationships.
Yeah.
Because that is the foundation. Obviously, we have business education. That's a proprietary curriculum that I wrote. But it's so beyond that as well.
So if you were to summarize in a sentence or two what your why is behind doing this, what would that be?
I really think that the world struggles with disconnection. And I feel like, every world religion has a different name for it. In the United States, our Christian tradition says sin is the reason for everything that's going wrong in the world. I like to label it as disconnection. And I feel like when we're connected and when we're listening to one another and when we're sharing our resources, that's where healing begins. And even though this is focused, or the refinery is focused right now on entrepreneurship, I created Echo Collective to heal that disconnection. And so we are really looking forward to starting other programs with that aim, in addition to entrepreneurship. So there's so many ways that we can gather around a common goal and heal that disconnection within one another and make society just a better place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really believe that now is the time to do this. Now is the time to address these problems. And the women that are living here from another country, they are the catalyst to make this happen. And I firmly believe that. And so I'm really excited to see what happens in the future for Echo, because once these women are empowered, they're just unstoppable.
Yeah. As you were talking before you said that, I was like, timely is just what I keep thinking too. This is so timely and so important. And the beauty of it too is that I see you modeling in the short time I've met you. I see you modeling that connection so well because you came in here and you're like, oh, I'm wearing this shirt that I'm wearing. Yeah. You should tell us what it is and your lip color too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a cool part of the story.
Yeah. So my lip color is from Thailand, from one of my friends. She's Karen. She's from Myanmar. And then my shirt is from Japan, from one of my Japanese friends. And, it's just, my life is so much better with them in it.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from them, and they show me so much about myself that I didn't know. And so, I'm definitely more fashionable with them in my lives.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. But it is super cool going back to the connection of how you are equipping women through like this business programming and these facilitation of modules and courses and things. But at the same time, it's like this deeper connection of like supporting them and truly just wanting them to go be the catalyst. And I think that's incredibly beautiful and so timely. Yeah. Super cool. So to close us out, a couple last questions. Number one, how would you answer the sentence, the pandemic taught me blank? How would you fill in the blank?
The pandemic taught me that I can learn anything. I might not be good at it, but I can truly learn anything. I have learned more in this past year, not just with Echo, but the whole gamut. Like I've learned how to use video editing software. I can run an audio visual panel and do live streaming now. Of course, I've started my own nonprofit. It's just astounding the information we have at our fingertips and how limiting we are with ourselves and say, oh, that's not my thing. And so I've really enjoyed how the pandemic has taught me that if you want to do something, Google it.
Yeah, honestly.
And then try.
At your fingertips. Yeah.
And I think you'll surprise yourself.
Yeah. Do you have a specific moment of when you realized that? Like, I can learn anything?
Yeah, actually. So my other side job, I work for the Unitarian Church, and I do some of their office stuff. And then when the pandemic started, they needed someone to edit their services. So like we were all recording pieces of the service. And then we were putting them together and then it was premiering on YouTube. So that's how that church approached the pandemic. And so they needed someone to edit video. And I had never, ever edited video before. But being the youngest on staff, they're like, oh, she's a millennial.
Yeah.
Have her do it.
Oh my goodness.
So that was me Googling, how do you use iMovie?
Yeah.
On a Wednesday in order to prepare for the service on Sunday.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty remarkable. Everything I've learned about video editing, and like, I would never, ever say that I'm good at it, but I can do it.
Yeah.
And I can make something that works.
Totally.
Like the videos that we have on our website, the refinery website, our graduation video, I edited that. And it's not fancy, but I was able to do that and broadcast our graduation to the world. Whereas otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have been a very insular experience, which is not what a celebration should be.
Yeah, totally.
And then, but the other day, so I was in the church and I had been taught how to run the AV panel, and we just got a whole new live streaming setup. So we have people in person, we're live, camera angles, all that.
Yes.
So I'd been taught how to do that. And it was just wild. As I was sitting there, like pressing the buttons and loading the views and everything, I just thought, oh my gosh, it's crazy. All the tech I've learned this past year.
You're like, who am I?
Yeah. I'm an AV person.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. So cool. So cool. So the second to last question I was going to ask you is, what is a hill that you are willing to die on? Kelly, personally.
Okay. So Kelly, personally, a hill that I'm willing to die on is that we are all the same.
Tell me more.
So I believe that we are all the same, and we all are born into different times, into different contexts, into different relationships that affect our behavior. But I am no different than anyone else.
Yeah.
I have just been shaped by my surroundings, and I have the ability to make the right choices, but I do feel very privileged because my ease of making the right choice has been affected by where I was born and how I grew up and the support that I have around me. And so that's why I'm so intense about connection. Because once you can see yourself in another person, then it shatters your world in an amazing way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I think that's a good mic drop to end on. Thanks so much for joining us, Kelly, and for your time and for sharing your story with us. Thank you so much for listening to the Angler Journey podcast. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend so we can keep building people, building businesses, and building this community.